Welcome back to the Aiken Chamber podcast. I'm Jim Tunison, President and CEO of the Aiken Chamber of Commerce. Today, I'm joined by Chuck Munns and Jim Foley. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So if you don't mind just starting off, this is going to be a military-themed episode. If you wouldn't mind just sharing your military backgrounds, or I guess what you can share about it.
Certainly. What we want to do today is talk about how the community can support the military. So I started at the U.S. Naval Academy a long time ago. I was a submariner. We're the silent service, so I won't say too much, except that I ended up commanding the U.S. submarine force, all of our submarines, and NATO. Wow. So it was quite an adventure. I then came here with Savannah River Site, and maybe we'll get back to that later because that's a bit of it. So I'll say more as we go.
Yeah, definitely.
I was in the Navy just for a short period of time, Navy ROTC at the University of Notre Dame, and served as a division officer in a guided missile cruiser out of San Diego.
Okay, awesome. So, I always like to say I personally didn't serve, but I went to college, played baseball, and Coach ran it like a boot camp, right? So right. Walking in there as a freshman, I like to say he ran the punk out of us. You go in there after high school, you're this teenager who thinks he's hot stuff, and you learn quickly that it's not about you, it's about the team mentality. And he really used the baseball as a way to shape us and mold us into young men and young leaders, right? Yeah. So how has the military shaped you guys as individuals, and what have you taken away from it?
Well, that's a semester-long course. But I was on the rowing team at the Naval Academy, and the baseball team we shared the locker room with them. So I know what they did, and I know what we did, and they're both very much team sports. In one word, it's 2 words: discipline. 3 words. Depends upon how you hyphenate. Discipline and self-confidence, and that's what you get in the beginning, and you learn teamwork, mm-hmm. and it's so important. And again, I hope we'll come back to it. But now our community needs to team with recruiters and help us continue our great military. Yeah,
definitely. I would just echo that: discipline, camaraderie. You have common enemies, so to speak. Maintenance, the sea. Our nation's enemies. So you have all these people with very, very diverse backgrounds that come together, and they have one focus. So it builds just great camaraderie, great experience, great self-confidence, and you learn how to be not only trustful, but trustworthy.
Yeah. Yep. So I heard discipline from both of you guys, and I'm a big Jocko Willink fan. I don't know if you know him. He's a Navy SEAL, retired Navy SEAL.
Sure.
He has his own podcast, and one of his books is Discipline Equals Freedom. And won't get into it, but definitely a key component to our military and just to be a successful country for sure. So today we're here to talk about our Community Salutes program. So if you wouldn't mind just talking about a little bit, what is it and what made you guys want to get involved?
If you don't mind, why don't I start with why,
mm-hmm.
and then I'll let Jim talk about what. And this will take maybe 3 minutes. The world has changed. It's almost back to the way it was. My time was the Cold War, Soviet Union against the United States in a battle. All across in all aspects of life, and so we're back to that. We've gone through 20 years or more of terrorism, which was an awful time, and that's still we have to worry about. But now it's us against Russia, China, Iran, North Korea. Those countries are coming together, and they fundamentally want to change the international order, the order that our parents and grandparents mm-hmm. created. And this is the rules-based international order that deals with economics, education, geopolitical things, military, security. They want to knock us down and change it to their benefit. So our national security is now more important than ever. And so I think about, what can a community do? Well, mm-hmm. Our national security is based upon the great equipment that our country can build, but more than that, the troops that we put into it. The troops come from the communities. Sailors, soldiers, airmen will enlist or not, mm-hmm. depending upon what they learn from their community, their schools, their parents. So our Community Salutes is a way for our community to get behind this effort, help give a positive sense about a military career or just tour of duty.
Right.
And so that's why Jim asked me to help out this year, and the more I learn about it, the more important I think it is. So that's the motivation behind it.
Okay.
I hope, and I'm sure Aiken will rally behind it. They have for a few years.
Absolutely.
But we need to do more.
Yeah.
And so we're asking for the community support to help our nation's national security.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Aiken is one of the most patriotic communities that I've been a part of. You
Yeah.
know, and we have the Memorial Day Parade. We have some great Veterans Day programs, right? A lot of great VSOs, Veteran Service Organizations here. But yeah, just engaging the younger demographic, I think, you know, in any, you know, the chamber, any business, or right, any industry, you know, that's the next challenge and opportunity. But Jim, if you wouldn't mind getting into, like, what specifically is our Community Salutes?
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Our Community Salutes started 2009 with the fundamental premise that we, as a community, most communities, do an excellent job of recognizing star athletes out of high school, star students out of high school, the kid that's going to the Ivy League school, and we largely ignore the kids that join the military. And I think that's because very few people realize two aspects of that are very, very important. One is it's extremely difficult to get into the military today. The perception is it's easy. It's really not. You have to be a decent student. You have to be physically fit and healthy. And you have to be a good citizen. And only about 10% of high school students make that cut, all three of those cuts. So you're dealing with a narrow section of the population, and yet, as Admiral Munns can attest to better than I can, 65 to 70% of the enlistees for the military across all the major services come from high school students. So it's the biggest, most important population of potential recruits to the military. And largely most communities are ignoring them and just not really doing anything. So this organization started in Philadelphia. Our national chairman is a gentleman by the name of Dr. Ken Hartman. And he was actually a dean of students and head of one of the schools at Drexel University. And he looked around. He was involved in the local school board. He looked around and just struck him that this was not a good thing. And so he started the organization there, and then it has just grown kind of grassroots all the way across the United States. In Aiken, we are called Our Community Salutes Midland, South Carolina, and that's because we include Aiken, Barnwell, and Edgefield counties. And we have, the national organization since inception has recognized about 250,000 enlistees since 2009. Our organization, we do a one-time event that occurs in May, typically at USC Aiken's Convocation Center. And we have, over the last 5 years that we've been in existence, we've recognized just about 250 students. So last year was a record high. We had over 50 students, and they're all of the major services, and including the Coast Guard, typically have one or two enlistees in every class. But it's mostly Army, Navy, Marines. It's just kind of the way it breaks down here in Aiken. And what we do, what is kind of unique about OCS Midlands, South Carolina, is we have had at every one of our gala events, we have had a recipient of the Congressional Medal of Honor participate. And what's kind of neat is our 50 or so students per year, they take the oath of office from a Medal of Honor recipient.
It's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
So it's not the official when they're standing in the boot camp, but it's just kind of a neat thing. And very few enlistees can say, "Hey, I took my oath of office from a recipient of the highest military honor our nation can give." So it's kind of neat. And the other thing that I think is really important to take away about our community suits, there's three factors that we are starting to measure as an organization nationally. One is the number of enlistees that get on the bus and go to their boot camp. And remember, we have an all-volunteer military, right? So most people would be surprised to know that the numbers can be as low as 65% that actually follow through and show up at boot camp for their commitment to enlist. We're not quite to 100%, but we're about 99.9% of kids that go to an OCS event follow through. And what's also interesting is about 95% complete. Again, all volunteer force. So if anyone decides, hey, you know what, I don't want to follow through, I don't want to be in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, they can raise their hands and go home, right? The kids that get that real positive send-off, they follow through and do well. And one of the things that we're really starting to want to track, and this is important for the Aiken community, is I would call it anecdotal data right now. There is data that suggests that kids that do that one tour, don't make the career of it, but have gone through the OCS send-off, have a propensity to come back. They feel good about their communities because their communities recognize them and thank them for their services they were going in.
You can just look at the veterans programs that we have at USC Aiken or Aiken Tech, and those are great. I call them kids. They're not kids. They're 20-something, 20, 30-somethings, but they're really positive here for our community, and they're here, learning and trying to get a better education after their tour.
Right.
And so it's really good for us too.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up because, as a business organization, you hear all the time, about some of the hiring issues or we don't have enough young professionals here. But, these are the type of people that we want in our community that have those foundational principles that, they garner through the boot camp, through their time in service and everything. So, I'd be interested to see and follow up in a couple of years once you get that data, but that's really interesting. So what feedback have you gotten from the kids, the families? What are you hearing from them like after these events? And
one thing, I have a guilty pleasure. I like to stand at the back of the room when the event ends because the enlistees walk out and you can just see that they are jacked up, and that's wonderful. But the parents are literally walking on air. Their parents are so proud of their kids, and they, if you look at who these kids are, it comes from all kinds of demographics, right? But they're just so proud of their kids, and their kids have just been recognized. And, we do some other things in addition to the oath. We give them some gifts. We give them their first challenge coin. I'll let Admiral Munns explain what that is. We give them just a lot of recognition, some very simple gifts. One thing that our national chapter gives all of the enlistees is a copy of the U.S. Constitution, Declaration of Independence, all of our laws. And the point is that we don't swear an oath to a king, an emperor. We swear an oath to the Constitution of the United States, support and defend the Constitution of the United States. So it's reinforcing. That's what it's about. It's about that piece. But one thing, let me just back up and share something with you. One thing about the military is I knew it as a young division officer, and I saw it with my sailors, is the military pushes responsibility to the lowest level. It's usually the opposite in the civilian world. And as a result, people in all fields, medical, industrial, nuclear, all the engineering fields, they come out of the military with a breadth of experience for their age that is really unprecedented. So if we can do something that reinforces coming back to Aiken, Barnwell, Edgefield counties, it's going to help our community. It's going to help our employers a lot. So, think about that. There's a wide range of fields in the military, more so than most people, I think, on the surface would think of, and that would benefit us. Very
quickly, I'd just say it's the understanding that you're belonging to something, and I'll give a 30-second story. It wasn't so much OCS, but I was talking at a veterans on Veterans Day a few years ago, so I was in my Vice Admiral uniform and tie and all sorts of gold, and I drove through Starbucks, I think it was, and the person on the other side said, "Wow, I've never." She said, "I'm in the ROTC, I think it was Navy, and can I ask you some questions?" And so there's a whole line of cars behind me. But the sense that there's something that you're belonging to, that you're part of, and so OCS is trying to make that feeling in the students, the parents, and the community.
Yeah, no, and that's something you can't replicate, you can't replace that.
Yeah.
So if people want to learn more and get involved about our specific chapter here locally, how can they do that?
The easiest way is to get on our website. It's kind of got a long URL. It's OCS Midlands, South Carolina, all the entire Midlands and South Carolina. Or you can just do a Google search. If you do Our Community Salutes Aiken, it will take you to our website.
Okay. And we can share that on our post and in the show notes too, so people have direct access to it.
And it's all a volunteer organization. We don't get monies from anywhere but the community. And it all goes to this event that we put together. And as we've said, the event is to create this atmosphere.
It's totally free for the enlistees and their family. And OCS is kind of, we've even gone a little bit beyond. One of the neat things about our national chapter is we now offer the families, the parents principally, of enlistees resources as well about financial literacy, benefits that they receive, VA benefits that their service members will be eligible for. There are a lot of things, and people just really are not aware of them. They're just not hearing about them. And we're bringing those resources to the enlistees and to their families.
No, that's awesome. You guys are doing great work, and one of the many organizations that make Aiken such a great place to live, work, and play. I will end the podcast here with one last question for you. Tying it back to Aiken, what, and either of you can chime in, what's your favorite thing about our community? I know it's tough. There's a lot of things that make it great.
Two things. One, well, first thing is it's so many different segments. You got equestrian, you got all the nuclear engineers from the Savannah River site. There's quite a military aspect here because of the Savannah River site. You got a university, an Aiken Technical College, and then retirees. And so what I find most interesting in the retiree community, I ask them often, why did they come? I came because of the Savannah River site, but why did they come? Well, they researched it. They went to a conference, or they read a magazine, and they talked to people, and they chose to come here because they've done the research. So it's just such a great place.
I would echo all those things. I just think it's a great small town. It's a small, big town. It's got a very community feel to it from the first day you're here. People are very welcoming and warm, very patriotic. I like that. It's just a wonderful place to live. Quality of life is excellent.
Yeah, I would echo that, 10 times over. But guys, thank you again for the work you're doing. Thank you for your service and your continued service to our country and our community. Thanks for being on.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk to the community and you.
Absolutely. Thank you as well.